Hey everybody, welcome to this section. In this lecture, we'll discuss regarding the implementation of IPSec site-to-site VPN between Palo Alto firewalls. But before we go ahead and do the implementation of IPSec site-to-site VPN, let's talk about, or let's recap the process of IPSec VPNs. Specifically with IPSec site-to-site VPN, what is the generic process involved, and then we will go ahead and do the configuration. Alright, so to understand or to recap, the IPSec site-to-site VPN, so as you all know that it is, let us say we have got a couple of domains here, so which could be a branch office or a head office, or might be a couple of branch offices, right? So let's say we have got couple of branch offices here. Okay. These are my Palo Alto firewalls sitting on the edge of the branch office. So this is CPA firewall 1, this is CPA firewall 2. They are connected using some ISP in the middle, so I'm considering an ISP over here, say ISP 1. There could be a sequence of multiple ISPs, but I'm keeping it simple. So let's say PA firewall 1 connects to ISP, and the ISP connects to PA firewall 2. Okay, now the point is this IPs that we have over here will be public IPs, right? This will be public IP address, right? I'm not defining the IP, but just a generic one. So this will be a public IP address on the interfaces that is assigned on the physical ports of the Palo Alto firewall, and behind this particular Palo Alto firewall, behind this you will have the the LAN networks, right? So behind this edge you'll have the routers, switches, and behind them you'll have the LAN networks. So I'm considering that we have got LAN network, which is generally a private network. So I've got a LAN network over here, which is generally a private network. Okay, now let's consider the private network with an example of 10.1.1.0/24, and let's say this is 10.2.2.0/24. okay, and let's say this public network as 12.1.1.1/30 over here, and let's say as an example this is say 23.1.1.1/30 here. Okay, so let's say the routing is provided for the public IPs via the ISP, right? So the Palo Alto 1 public IP and the PA2 public IP are reachable to each other. Now the point is you need to establish a VPN session or a VPN tunnel between these two firewalls, right? So this will be a site-to-site. So this will be a site-to-site IPSec VPN tunnel, right? Also called as an ISACAMP tunnel. Okay, Internet Security Association Key Management Protocol. So this is kind of a protocol suite, and behind the ISACAMP you have got multiple phases that occurs to set up the particular tunnel, right? So the job is to create this particular site-to-site IPSec VPN tunnel with an intention that there's private networks, they can communicate securely over this public internet, right? So when these private networks will try to communicate with each other, their traffic will be routed over this particular site-to-site VPN tunnel, right? And with the process of IPSec involved, and the packets will be encrypted, the packets will be authenticated, so that there is no sort of man-in-the-middle attack which can happen in the public ISPs, right? So to define it, that means an IPSec site-to-site VPN, it connects the interesting networks at different physical locations using the secure IPSec tunnels, and typically it is used between offices or branches of an organization. And the IPSec protocol suite, it ensures these features like data confidentiality. So I will point those features of IPSec site or IPSec protocol suite it offers. It's first of all, it's data confidentiality, data integrity, and authenticity, right, over an untrusted network like the internet. Now, just to recap quickly, there are phases of negotiation that happens. Phases of negotiation. So your IPSec VPN negotiation occurs in two major phases, as we know, using the protocols like IKE or IKE, which is also called as Internet Key Exchange. Okay, so IPSec is a global term. So under IPSec there are multiple protocol suite that works together, right? So IKE is one of them. IKE has got a couple of versions, version 1, version 2, right? Yeah, so when you consider like that, that means you have to understand the process of multiple phases. So I believe you know that, so I'll just recap it. So you've got phase 1, phase 2, right? So first of all, you have got the session. The IPSec VPN is established between two sites, and to do that you have got a couple of phases that occurs using this particular IKE protocol. So you've got phase 1. So in phase 1, it's the idea of establishing the IKE security association, okay, which is also known with a term called as ISACAMP SA. All right, so the purpose is to establish a secure channel for negotiating further, which is a phase 2 parameters. That means initially inside this particular tunnel, you'll have a phase 1 which will be involved here, right, which is also called as a control plane tunnel. So phase 1, which is kind of a control plane tunnel, and it will be very much important to establish this phase 1 tunnel in order to form the next tunnel, which is called as the phase 2 tunnel, right? So it is called as the phase 2 tunnel. So phase 2 tunnel parameters, or phase 2 tunnel is based on phase 1 control plane tunnel, right? So in case of phase 1, basically the tunnel gets established using this IKE security association. So there are multiple steps involved, so I'll just quickly recap that. So first step is basically initiation. So in case of that initiation process, one peer out of those two firewalls will act as the initiator, and it will send a request to start the negotiation. So let us say PA firewall 1 acts as the initiator, so it starts the negotiation request, and in that negotiation request there are multiple messages that includes the proposals for so I can say messages includes proposal for, so proposals will be given for encryption, example AES or might be 3DES, etc. Proposal will be given for hashing, which is, let us say, MD5 or SHA-1 or SHA-2. Proposal will be given for authentication mechanism to support, right? Authentication method, which could be either a digital certificate based authentication or might be pre-shared key, which is also called as PSK. Likewise, what Diffie-Hellman group to be used for key exchange will be proposed for and will be negotiated. And the final one is the lifetime of the tunnel, and the default lifetime is 86400 seconds. Okay. Yeah, so this is the first phase. I mean, in first phase, first of all, the initiator will actually include those proposals for encryption, hashing, authentication method, Diffie-Hellman group, and lifetime to be negotiated for. So in step number 2, what happens is both the peers, right? Just give me a second. Yeah. So in step number 2, it is basically the authentication and key exchange. All right. So here what happens is, both the peers will use, let us say, Diffie-Hellman to securely generate a shared secret. Okay, so I can say that both the peers will use the Diffie-Hellman to securely generate a shared secret key. Okay, both the peers will authenticate each other okay, either using PSK or certificate based called as RSA, or might be EAP will be used. Okay, and finally, once verified, both the peers will establish an IKESA, which is also called as a phase 1 tunnel, and which will be used to protect the phase 2 negotiations, because the phase 2 negotiations are basically for your real data, right? So while setting up your phase 1, you can use there are 2 modes that can be used. To set up phase 1. One of the mode is called as the main mode, which is more secure. Okay, it is more secure, and it uses 6 messages while doing the negotiation. And you have got another mode which is called as the aggressive mode, which is basically faster in establishing your phase 1 tunnel, and it includes 3 messages, right? So I believe all of you know this, but just as a recap, you can anytime use Wireshark. When you are configuring an IPSec site-to-site VPN, you can use a Wireshark, and you can always see this particular phase 1 messages based on what is set up, right? So yep, likewise, once phase 1 is done, then your phase 2 session will be established, right? So I write down with a different color here for phase 2. So your phase 2 session will be established. So phase 2 is more of negotiating the IPSec security associations, also called as IPSec SA. So the main purpose of this particular phase 2 is to negotiate the actual IPSec tunnel for your data traffic. So once the private network will communicate with each other, their original data will travel over this particular phase 2 tunnel. Right, that's the major idea of phase 2. Now in case of phase 2, there are multiple steps involved. So the first one is the proposal exchange. So the first thing first is the peers will propose protocols that has to be used to establish your phase 2. Either ESP protocol is used, that is encapsulating security payload, or AH is used, that is authentication header. So most of the time you'll have this ESP protocol that will be used. Then what type of encryption algorithm to be used for phase 2 tunnel will be decided here, and also what type of integrity algorithms to be used will be decided in this particular step. So as I've told you, this protocol that is ESP, that is encapsulating security payload, is more commonly used in phase 2 because this really encrypts the phase 2 data, because AH does not encrypt, it's more of authentication, but AH does not encrypt the data, but ESP does that. So another thing in phase 2, you have got two modes of tunnel. One is called as tunnel mode or transport mode. So phase 2 is based on two modes, tunnel mode or transport mode is chosen here. Okay, chosen here, and usually you will find tunnel mode is used for site-to-site VPN. For S2S VPN. Okay. Next is in step number 2, you have got the key material establishment, which means that your peers will derive the IPSec keys from the phase 1 material. Okay, and a new security association is created in both the directions. All right, and third step, as simple to understand, your tunnel will be established over here. Right, so step number 3, tunnel or the phase 2, or you can see your IPSec VPN is established over here. That means now the data packets are encrypted and decrypted based on the agreed security association. Okay, and finally the tunnel will remain active until the SA, that is security association, lifetime expires, or an event called as rekeying event happens. All right, so these are the multiple steps involved for setting up your phase 1 and phase 2 VPN. All right, so just as a summary, your phase 1, the main purpose of phase 1 is to do a secure negotiation of a channel, The protocols could be used as either IKE version 1 or IKE version 2. Your key exchange happens via Diffie-Hellman. Your authentication can happen via either PSK, that is pre-shared key, or certificate based, that is RSA. And the whole idea is to create your IKE association, that is IKE SA, right? In phase 2, it is more of your data secure transmission. Protocols that can be used is either ESP or AH, and the key exchange material is derived from phase 1. Authentication is not required here, okay, and it basically creates your IPSec SA, okay. Your security association for both your IKE in phase 1 and IPSec in phase 2 have lifetimes, which is 1 hour, and when your lifetime is nearing your expiry, your peers automatically renegotiate, and if the tunnel fails to re-establish, the traffic between the sites will stop. Okay, so let us say now you have got two sites, PA1, PA2. The VPN configuration on both the gateways will include to set up your pre-shared keys. So you need to configure, make sure they need to configure the pre-shared keys for both the sites. Right, you need to configure the peer IP addresses between which the IPSec has to be established, and also you need to configure the phase 1 and phase 2 parameters, right? So we'll do that in the implementation step. So once your setup is done, once it is initiated, your gateways will perform the phase 1 process to authenticate and build your encrypted tunnel between PA1 and PA2, right? And likewise your the gateways will then perform your phase 2 to set up an IPsec tunnel, and then you can see that the private networks that we have can communicate together, right? So generally, as I've told you, your transport mode, it is used for host to host communication, and tunnel mode, it is used to network communication. So in case of transport mode, only the payload, that is the data of the IP packet, is going to be encrypted. But in case of tunnel mode, the entire IP packet is encrypted, okay? Then it is re-encapsulated in a new IP packet. So that's the reason, in site-to-site VPN implementation, most of the time you'll be using tunnel mode, okay? Your IPsec protocols, as I've told you, out of two types, that is authentication header and ESP. So the AH protocol, it works with the protocol number, which is IP protocol number, which is 51. So it is IP protocol number is basically 51, and your ESP works on the IP protocol number, which is 50. Okay, ESP provides encryption, integrity, authentication, but AH only provides authentication and integrity. It does not support for encryption. All right, so these are the important points that you must remember. Okay, setting up phase 1, setting up phase 2, what modes to be used, right? Yeah, so there are multiple use cases of site-to-site VPNs or IPsec VPNs. So IPsec VPNs can be used in multiple deployment scenarios. So one of the deployment scenario is your site-to-site VPN, where you can implement IPsec protocol. You can implement IPsec protocol for remote access VPN solutions as well. Another type is called as extranet VPNs, which connects to partner networks securely. All right, and another one is secure communication in your cloud environments. Okay, now normally when the packet is pushed across this particular tunnel, so your packet will be encapsulated. So when the data communicates over that particular phase 2 session between the two sides. So what happens is you have got some of the important concept to understand. So you'll have the original, I mean you'll have the payload, right? So you'll have the payload over here, payload, that means your data over here, and then the payload will have the original IP header that will encapsulate your payload, right? And basically you'll have ESP header after that. So ESP is going to encrypt your original IP header and as well as the payload. It is going to encrypt, you know, everything, includes your IP packet and the data that you are transferring. And so basically the ESP header will be added here, and a new outer IP header will be added here for routing. Okay, so original packet will contain, you know, the payload and the original IP header. That's it. But once this phase 2 is established, once your data flows over the particular phase 2, your ESP header is added to the particular phase 2 original information. All right, so I hope, you know, the concepts are clear and you understand the key terms of your IPSec site-to-site VPNs. So I will see you in the next lecture, where I will be doing the implementation of site-to-site VPN between my Palo Alto firewalls. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next lecture.